From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Coming up on AgDay, variety is the spice of life, and that's certainly the case when it comes to sugarcane. See what's new this year. Farmer sentiment appears to be improving.
That 52-point improvement is the largest 2-month improvement we've seen in the Ag Economy Barometer since we started collecting data.
But new developments in the trade war with China may sway opinion.
It is a body blow, and I don't know any other way to describe it.
AgDay, presented by the all-new Chevy Silverado, the strongest, most advanced Silverado ever.
Good morning, I'm Clint Griffiths. We're waiting again today to see if U.S. stocks will recoup more of their losses after gaining back some ground on Tuesday. It comes after Chinese central bank signaled it wouldn't let the yuan sink much more. Wall Street suffering its worst day so far this year on Monday due to escalating trade tensions with China. The yuan on Monday falling past a politically sensitive level of 7 to the U.S. dollar. A Chinese yuan now worth just a little over 14 cents to the U.S. dollar, leading the U.S. Treasury to label China as a currency manipulator. Now, that's the first time it's done so since 1994. China's deputy central bank governor responding in an interview with the state broadcaster, the accusation, quote, is not in line with the basic common sense of economics, end quote, saying the declines were driven by market forces. The deputy governor also blaming the U.S. for causing instability in the global financial markets as a result of the prolonged trade dispute. Now, American officials complain the low value of Chinese currency makes Chinese export prices unfairly low, hurting foreign competitors and increasing Beijing's trade surplus. President Trump again taking to Twitter about the trade war, saying massive amounts of money from China and other parts of the world is pouring into the U.S., adding, quote, we are in a very strong position. And in another tweet, the president hinting at another possible round of China ag trade assistance payment to farmers next year. As they have learned in the last 2 years, our great American farmers know that China will not be able to hurt them, in that their president has stood with them and done what no other president would do, and I'll do it again next year if necessary, end quote. The president also possibly referencing some reports we first told you about yesterday that Chinese companies had suspended buys of U.S. ag. Zippy Duvall, the president of the American Farm Bureau Federation, called that announcement, quote, a body blow to thousands of farmers and ranchers who are already struggling to get by.
We did $9 billion worth of sales last year, and if that goes away, I mean, we've gone from, a $20 billion market to one of our largest trading markets, one of our top 5 markets, and now it's back down into where we were almost 20 years ago when we worked so diligently, for well over a decade and a half to get a market that bought very little U.S. agricultural products and commodities, up to nearly at one point, 2014, I believe it was, we were at nearly $24 billion in sales. So that kind of a hit, not just on any one particular commodity, but all across the agricultural spectrum, has got the markets just reeling from what this is going to mean, particularly as we're just, weeks, if not a couple of months away from harvest in many parts of the country.
Zippy Duvall says farmers are grateful for the market facilitation program payments that are allowing farmers and ranchers to continue farming during this difficult time, but we're hearing that there are some issues when it comes to the second round of trade aid. USDA officials acknowledging there are several glitches in the software being used in County Farm Service Agency offices to implement the plan. It plans to hand out $7.25 billion in payments to farmers by the end of this month. We're also hearing some farmers did not certify their acreage last year, especially in southern states, and that is a must before being eligible for this second round of trade aid. And in some instances, county FSA offices put farmers' acreage as idle due to workload constraints. USDA's Undersecretary Bill Northey telling ProFarmer they are aware of the situation and are looking into it. With China buying fewer U.S. soybeans, the European Union has now become a top buyer. President Trump announcing last week that a new agreement between the EU and the U.S. will give beef exports a big boost, and that could also help U.S. soybeans. Megan Kaiser, the U.S. Soybean Board, telling Farm Journal's Tyne Morgan there is potential in that market and others.
I think there's a lot of hope there. There is a growing preference. Same thing. We have some of the countries in the European Union are purchasing more protein, and there's a lot of growth potential there. But we're really also, our diversified strategy is not only looking at what the EU would be a mature market. We're starting in places like West Africa and Ghana, where we're helping to use the technical expertise and get more businesses there started that want to buy U.S. soy and sustain their people.
And next Monday, we'll get a better picture about just how much soybeans and corn were planted, with USDA releasing new crop production and supply demand estimates. Brokerage firm Allendale releasing its own numbers ahead of that report. Allendale calling for corn planted at 86.29 million acres. In July, USDA pegged it higher at 91.7. Now, it matched yields with USDA as a 166 bushel per acre estimate. Allendale putting soybeans at 81.21 million acres. That's above the USDA's July projection of 80 million acres, and it put yields at 48 bushels per acre. That's a tick below USDA. If you're like me and trying to figure out what's actually out in the field this year, and that has you curious, make sure you don't miss our coverage of the 2019 Pro Farmer Midwest Crop Tour. It officially kicks off on the 19th of this month. Teams of scouts will trek across the Midwest from Ohio to Minnesota and everywhere in between for our first real look at the crop potential of both corn and soybeans. I, along with the rest of the AgDay team, will be going along with them. Don't miss a minute, on air or online at agweb.com. Now, before this trade war escalation, farmers were feeling better about the farm economy, at least according to the latest July Purdue CME Group Ag Economy Barometer. Now, as you can see, the barometer jumping to 153 points. That's more than 50 points better than May of this year, and it's the second month in a row the measure of farmer sentiment has risen sharply. The biggest driver of the overall sentiment improvement was producers' improved perspective on current conditions. That index jumping 44 points in July, the largest one-month move since the barometer was created. For many producers, it coincides with the completion of a long, drawn-out spring planting season and improved crop conditions.
25% of the corn farmers in our July survey said they were going to take a prevented planting payment on at least some of their intended corn acreage. We followed up and asked them how much of their corn acreage was going to be qualified under prevented planting, and 61% said that it would be at least 15% of their intended corn acreage.
This month's survey was also prior to USDA's late July announcement about the 2019 Market Facilitation Program and the per-acre payment rates. Harvest is starting on some of those great summer foods. Meteorologist Cindy Clausen shows us in today's Crop Comments. Cindy?
Clinton, sweet corn harvest season has arrived, at least for Robert Reese of Lansing, Michigan. Looks like he had a little help in the tractor as he drove along, pulling those cobs. Add a little butter, maybe some time on the grill. However you like to prepare it, you can almost taste it. Well, let's take a look at our wind speed forecast for the day. We're going to have some slightly windy conditions over in parts of the plains to start off the day. And as we head through the day, we'll see those winds kind of pushing off to the south. A lot of the rest of the country not seeing too bad of winds. Of course, some of those higher elevations in the Rockies. Gets a little bit on the breezy side in some of the mountains overnight. Most areas calm down. We still have those winds in kind of the central and southern plains. We start to see some windy conditions picking up, though, in the Great Lakes as we head through our Thursday. Coming up in just a few minutes, I'll have your national forecast. But for now, here are some hometown temps.
Introducing Farm Journal TV, on demand 24/7. AgDay, Machinery Pete TV. U.S. Farm Report on your phone and tablet. Download the Farm Journal TV mobile app today.
Still ahead, we talk about an immature grain crop and the impact that could have on prices down the road. And later, we look into two new additions to this year's sugarcane crop in the country.
Closed captioning is brought to you by BASF. Grow smart with BASF. We create chemistry.
In USDA's latest crop progress report, the nation's major grains remain behind in maturity. So what does that mean for the weeks ahead? Ty Morgan asked a question in today's analysis from our studios in Kansas City.
Here now with Brian Roach of INTL FC Stone. Brian, a lot of talk about the immaturity of this crop. We've talked about it on Ag Day. We've talked about it on other shows. What about corn black layer right now? Kind of what are your thoughts?
Our research team, Arlen and his group put together a little study based on the maturity dates and even shortening up the hybrids a little bit. And what it shows us is that, we're going to have about 60% of the corn crop that will black layer in September. And if you break that down a little bit, I'm seeing about 12 million acres that will black layer in the third and fourth week of September, and Illinois being 6-7 million acres. Minnesota, 1.3. You've just got a number of states that have some real risk a whole month later, and I'm not trying to throw flashes out there of an early frost, because that hasn't happened actually for quite some time, but we also haven't had this many acres parked in September to finish. And I think that if you look at today's market, it doesn't really reflect that at all, no risk premium, and I don't think it really should. But I just think it's interesting. That'll be the type of thing we start to talk about.
Yeah, so what type of price impact do you think that could have? If we see, an early frost or a normal frost actually happen this year, considering how late this crop is, I mean, if that would happen, what type of knee-jerk reaction would that create possibly? Good question. I guess it would really depend on how severe it is, how long it lasts, what areas does it really flow into, and if you look at the Dakotas and Minnesota, northern Iowa, those are probably the most at risk, let's say. Illinois, it just depends. You probably divide the state in half and look at the northern half as most at risk, but we've got some big problems in Illinois and eastern Iowa already, and that would just decimate those crops further. So I think it's really hard to tell, but I think it's a real risk. The data's there. We're certainly not interested in trading it today, but it'll come to the front, it'll come to the table. Just fast forward 30 days and we will be talking about it. Okay, Brian, thank you so much. We appreciate it. We'll take a quick break and then we'll have much more right here on AgDay.
To contact Brian, send him an email at brian.roach@intlfcstone.com.
The 2019 Pro Farmer Midwest Crop Tour is coming soon. Kicking off August 19th, watch for extensive coverage on air and online. The premier sponsor of Crop Tour is Pioneer, with support from IBM, RCIS, RAM, AeroVironment, Titan Tires, and Farm Credit Services of America.
Meteorologist Cindy Clausen taking a look at our root zone moisture map. And Cindy, if we look at this really over the last month or so, we've seen some changes and the southern plains really starting to dry out.
It really is. I mean, this map on itself has really made a lot of change over the past couple of months. But yeah, let's take a look at that southern plains area. Especially Texas. Let's take a look at that, because while the eastern part of Texas, especially the northeast, has gotten a little wetter, we've really started to dry out in the western part of Texas, especially in the northern areas and on up into Colorado and western Oklahoma, western Kansas. So we've really seen some dryness, especially in the south central part of the United States. The dryness continues in the southeast. It's gotten a little bit better though. But we still continue to watch the eastern corn belt, while a lot of the eastern parts of the plain states and into the northern plains have actually seen more moisture over the last week. As we head through today, we have a couple of fronts that we're watching. One is going to be bringing some showers and thunderstorms in the northeast and mid-Atlantic states, stretching all the way back into the plains, where we have some showers and thunderstorms there. That's where we're seeing those stronger winds today. A second front moving into the Great Lakes. We'll see a secondary round of some showers and thunderstorms there. Heading into tonight, the northeast will be seeing some showers and thunderstorms. We kind of lose that scattered activity in the southeast, but you can see right in between these fronts, we'll see an area of perhaps some heavy rain moving from Kansas and on into parts of Missouri and Arkansas as well as we head through our Thursday. Behind the front, we start to see those temperatures turning cooler and some drier air moving into the north central part of the country. Precipitation estimate now. I don't think this is very accurate, because I know that we've had some more rain on the west side of this, but as we head through the next 24 hours, you can kind of see where the trend is going as everything moves further to the east, especially northeast, and there's that kind of that low that's over in the plains. So we might see some potentially heavy rain in parts of Kansas and especially southwestern Missouri, some very wet conditions in Florida as well. The heat's still on in the southern plains, near or above 100 degrees for a lot of folks there. We're a lot of 80s and 90s across the south, and you can see some cooler air starting to work into the northern parts of the United United States. Overnight, we're getting back down into the 60s, maybe even 50s. Still pretty warm, though, in the south central United States. And as we head into tomorrow, we're going to see temperatures slightly cooler, but still fairly hot, especially in the southern plains. But we see those cooler 70s working their way down from the north. Now, as far as the jet stream is concerned, you can see that trough moving through the eastern part of the country. Still got that ridge in the west, so we do expect that heat, especially here in the southern plains. But watch what happens as we get into the weekend. That trough moves, affects the northeastern United States, kind of a little one in the west. But overall, as we get into next week, we see more of a zonal flow with that heat continuing in the southern part of the country. That's your national forecast. Now let's check on the weather where you live. 10 Sleep, Wyoming, scattered showers and thunderstorms possible today with a high of 88 degrees. 7 Points, Texas, sunny and hot with a high of 98. And 4 Oaks, North Carolina, some scattered showers and thunderstorms with a high of 91.
You may be thinking you're ordering something gluten-free in a restaurant, but that may not be the case. Plus the good news and bad news when it comes to fresh fruits and vegetable exports in the U.S.
Join Andrew McCrae for Farming the Countryside, a farmer-focused podcast that is all about production agriculture. Farming the Countryside is available wherever you listen to your favorite podcast and is brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions, the world's largest provider of crop inputs and services.
A mixed report when it comes to exports of U.S. fresh fruits and vegetables. The USDA reporting exports of fruits were down while vegetable exports were up for the year. Diving into the numbers, fruit exports from July of last year to June of this year were $4.3 billion. That's down 11% from the previous year. Vegetable exports totaled $2.67 billion. That's up 5% from a year ago. Now, vegetable exports to Canada were up 7%, while fruit exports to Canada were off 8%. Fruit exports to Mexico were up 2%, and vegetable exports to Mexico, they rose 16%. Now, the effects of the tariffs on China impacting exports with fresh fruit to China down by a whopping 48%. A new study says the majority of foods labeled as gluten-free in restaurants really aren't gluten-free at all. The study was published recently in the American Journal of Gastroenterology. It showed 32% of gluten-free labeled foods in restaurants actually contains gluten. Now, the study says the worst offenders are pizza and pasta. A group called Where Food Comes From Inc. saying it will take action following the study. It's an independent third-party verification of food production practices in North America, announcing the launch of the gluten-free by WFCF standard. Now, officials say the updated standard will include more stringent requirements necessary to make sure ingredients and grain-based products and menu items are thoroughly vetted. Up next, finding sweet success in the sugarcane fields of Louisiana. We'll see how new varieties are helping farmers get maximum results after the break.
Closed captioning is brought to you by BASF. Grow smart with BASF. We create chemistry.
Variety development is a key component to the success of the Louisiana sugarcane industry, and this year, sugarcane growers have 2 new varieties that are being released for commercial production. Ag Center correspondent Craig Gautreaux has this report from the LSU Ag Center Sugar Research Station in St. Gabriel.
They are called L12-201 and HO12-615, and while these labels may seem nondescript, they could soon play a big role in Louisiana's $1 billion sugarcane industry. The letters and numbers represent 2 new sugarcane varieties being released to commercial growers this year.
Both of these varieties, 201 and 615, have a high sugar content. 615 is a very good stubbling variety, which is going to allow farmers to plant and keep their crop until a 3rd stubble.
Stubbling refers to a crop regrowing after its first harvest. Sugarcane growers typically get 3 to 4 crop cycles from their initial planting. New varieties are rigorously tested throughout the sugarcane belt and may take up to 12 years of research and testing before being released.
We bring the variety to 12 different locations, heavy and light soil, and once they make it that far, that's really the telltale sign if they're going to be able to make it through to that vote and become a commercial variety.
Louisiana has seen its acreage increasing on the northern and western fringes of the sugarcane belt. Consistency of yields and price stability have fueled the growth.
Sugarcane is also a very resilient crop, so we can take these weather conditions. We don't see a lot of fluctuation in our yields from year to year compared to some crops.
Mills are expected to begin grinding the cane early this season because such a large crop is out there. With the LSU Ag Center, this is Craig Gocho reporting.
All right, thanks, Craig. Now, Craig says one reason cited for price stability in sugar, agreements in place to prevent Mexico from dumping sugar here in the U.S. That's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. It's been part of your day with us. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.